I'm going to go ahead and move into my presentation. I am so glad so many of you are here today. I want to talk about what are VA service-connected disabilities and the importance of those in relation to death certificates. My objectives for today are to make sure everybody can define what is a VA service-connected disability, make sure everyone knows how to obtain a list of a veteran's service-connected disabilities, and understand the benefits of including those VA service-connected disabilities on their death certificate. Pretty straightforward. Again, please feel free to drop questions in the chat, raise your hand, or just come off mute and ask. Okay, what is a VA service-connected disability? It is a monthly tax-free payment to veterans who got sick or injured while serving in the military, or to those veterans whose service made an existing condition worse. So all that to say, if a veteran has a medical condition or a disability that is caused or worsened by their time in the service, they can be service-connected for it and get a monthly financial compensation for that. So when a veteran, and they do have to prove that it started or worsened during their service. It's a long process to apply and get it verified and start getting that monthly income. When a veteran is service connected, they're service connected on a scale from 0% to 100, and depending on what percentage they are assigned, that's how they determine how much disability money they would get each month. So you can be everything from 0 to 100%. People ask, what does 0% mean? 0% means they're not getting a monthly compensation, but they can get free medical care, including transportation, related to whatever that service-connected condition is. So maybe it's not something that the VA feels is preventing you from working or, continuing to live your life fully, but we want to make sure you're taken care of, so you get that 0%. For any service-connected condition, veterans are able to get free medical care. There is something called there is a list of presumed service-connected conditions. So like I said, veterans have to prove that their disability began or was worsened during their service. However, the exception to that is presumptive conditions. So there are certain medical conditions that if you served at a certain time in a certain place and now you have a certain medical condition, you are automatically service connected for it. So an example would be veterans who were in Vietnam, exposed to Agent Orange. There is a long list of cancers, for example, or diabetes that are automatically service connected for those folks. So that speeds up that process, makes it a lot easier for them. Other examples, I'm sure everyone has heard about Camp Lejeune and the water. And then there are also like Gulf War and post 9/11 veterans with quite a few presumptive conditions related to burn pits, toxic exposure, including things like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia. And you can see on the right here, this is the current pay rate for service-connected disabilities. So this is for a single veteran. You can see that whatever their service connection is there on the left, they would receive a tax-free compensation by the amount on the right. And that is for single veterans. It goes up if you have a spouse or if you have dependents. I just wanted to give people a ballpark of those numbers so that you can understand how truly important it is. It can be life-changing. And you can find more information about that on the Veterans Benefits Administration website. Any questions about what is a service-connected disability? Again, just to hammer home, it's a medical condition that was caused or worsened during their time in the service. It can be medical or mental health. I feel like I skipped a slide, maybe. I feel like I skipped a slide, or I deleted it or something. Sorry about this, guys. Okay, so now you know what a a service-connected disability is, but how do you confirm what a veteran's service-connected disability is, right? So sometimes you ask a veteran, are you enrolled in the VA? And they say yes, and they're not really. They're just making an assumption, I'm a veteran, I'm part of the VA. How do you really confirm what service connection they have? So for all, and I'm speaking to hospice agencies, but this goes for anyone, if you're working with a veteran, when you enroll them in your services, you should be screening to see if they are a veteran. If they are a veteran, you should also be asking, are you service connected? Veterans often have trouble articulating that, especially maybe at end of life, or they're not as organized anymore with their paperwork. So if a veteran tells you they're service connected or not, call the VA palliative care teams at those numbers I gave you earlier for me and Marty. Call the VA, ask us what the list of service-connected conditions is that they have, and we will confirm that you have it. So we can send you a list of their official service-connected conditions so that you have those on file. If the VA has made a referral to you, those are listed on their cover sheet with their demographic information. But again, just screen for them. And then if you need to confirm what their service-connected condition is, give VA palliative care a call. And we will make sure that you all have like an outline of these slides, including Marty and my contact information. I see a few questions. Do you have a ballpark time frame of how long it takes for a veteran to be approved for a service-connected disability? Great question. I don't. In the past, it's taken years. Most recently, I'm hearing people say it's taking less than a year. If they are applying while they are terminally ill and mark their application as such, then it should be expedited. Best case scenario that I've ever seen is 2 or 3 months, but I really hesitate to answer that. Yep, we will provide the palliative care numbers. If a vet has a
One thing
service,
to note there, one thing to note on the service connection, the good thing is, though it does take so much time, they do date back to when it was first applied for. So
yes,
let's just say it does take 6 months or a year or whatever, what the date that it was accepted as applied for, they will get, if they're approved, then they get back pay to that. So not that that fixes that in the meantime, but it helps later. So
yes, I agree. And service-connected condition applications can continue while if a veteran passes, and then it goes through afterwards, the spouse can still be eligible for some benefits. So keep that in mind. Al, I saw your hand. If you have comments on the timeline, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay, so now what? You know what a VA service-connected condition is. You know you can call the VA palliative care office to confirm what a veteran's service-connected conditions are. But now what? What are you going to do with that information? On my next slide, I'm going to talk about the benefits to having a veteran's service-connected condition on their death certificate. But for now, I want to put into your minds, like, what do we do with that information? Our recommendation to you all would be to create an internal system within your organization to make sure that veterans charts are flagged and that it is clearly marked on their charts what their service-connected conditions are, so that when a veteran passes away, the physician signing the death certificate can be sure to consider whether or not the veteran's service-connected condition could have contributed to their death. If a veteran service-connected condition is listed as a primary or a secondary cause, then their family is entitled to quite a bit more benefits. So it is really important to get that service connection on the death certificate if appropriate. It's not always appropriate, but oftentimes it could be listed as a secondary condition and or primary, and folks just don't know. And there's often multiple options for a diagnosis, and so they just choose one. But if it could be the service-connected condition, it needs to be to ensure that their families get everything they're entitled to. Reading questions as I go. Yes, I think I answered this one. Well, maybe not. So somebody's asking about monthly compensation for spouses after veterans pass. I'm going to answer that on the next slide. Okay, so VA survivor benefits. If a veteran passes away, their spouse may be eligible for something called the DIC, Dependency and Indemnity Compensation Benefit. So this gets to your question, Jacqueline. If a veteran was receiving service-connected compensation while they were living, say they were 100% and they were getting almost $4,000 a month, when they pass away, that goes away. And their spouse may, but not always, they may be eligible for a monthly compensation. The spousal monthly compensation, I believe, is like $1,200 to $1,500 a month, nowhere near what a 100% service connected compensation is, but obviously $1,000 to $1,500 a month for a spouse indefinitely for the remainder of their life is very helpful. So in order for a spouse to be eligible for the monthly compensation after a veteran dies, there's there are a few different ways that the spouse can be eligible. The veteran could have been service connected 100% for like 5 years prior to death, or there's a few other caveats, but one surefire way that the spouse can get the survivor benefit is if the veteran died because of their service connected condition. So making sure that that is on the death certificate, if appropriate, will really, really help the families. It mentions on here that if a veteran has applied for service connection, but it just has not, they haven't made a decision on it yet, as long as they have filed, Al's going to be looking at me, as long as there's an intent to file or they've put in the full application, that can be seen through, and the service connection can be granted after the veteran passes, which would entitle the wife to survivor benefits. There is also something called a burial allowance that some veterans are eligible for. Um, if if it says on a death certificate that a veteran's cause of death was because of their service connection, they can get up to $2,000 as a reimbursement for a funeral. Again, it's a reimbursement. It's all after the fact, and there's a couple different ways to be eligible for that. But again, one very concrete way is if it's on their death certificate that they died because of their service connection. Yeah, I can't say that enough time. The veteran service connected condition must be on their death certificate to be eligible for these benefits. There are a few other ways they could be eligible, like if they died in a VA hospital, or like I said, if they were service connected for a certain amount of time before they died. But the easiest way is if they pass because of a service connection. Um, I see a question. How do they apply for the reimbursement for the burial or the spouse to keep being eligible? And can the burial allowance be granted to a burial outside of a national cemetery? Yes. So please go to our website and see my presentation from the last time where I talked about this stuff in a lot more detail. VA in general does not pay for funerals. However, most veterans are eligible for free burial at a national cemetery, meaning that the services provided on national cemetery grounds is all included. VA does not pay for what happens at the funeral home. This reimbursement can go towards whatever cost the family has at an outside cemetery or the funeral home, whatever they need to be reimbursed for. How does a person have influence over what is put onto a death certificate? I want to be clear that I'm not I'm not asking people to inappropriately put service connection on a death certificate. I just want agencies to be aware of what a veteran's service-connected conditions are, so that if appropriate, those could be listed as a primary or secondary cause of death. It would be up to the medical provider signing the death certificate, what to put on there. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Elaine, but I would say that medical providers for hospice agencies are not going to just be familiar with these things. They're not going to know what I'm saying today. So I would say your opportunity to have influence would be to educate your agencies, find a way to flag a veteran's charts, and make sure your agency has a way for making sure this happens. Um, I may put you on the spot, Melissa, a little bit later if we have time for you to talk about how you guys do that. At some organizations, the We Honor Veterans coordinator can help with creating that kind of process, or maybe it's your bereavement coordinator. Um, it could really be anyone who has a passion for assisting veterans and their families and can work with their organization to come up with a process for this. I think it's going to look different at every organization. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Staff turnover, service-connected conditions change. Like it is a challenge. It's even a challenge here at the VA hospital. Um, how does a veteran apply for service-connected disability? I should have also said, how did they apply for service-connected disability, or how did they apply for any of the benefits that I mentioned on the last slide? Veterans can file online if they or their families are savvy enough for that. But generally speaking, they'll want to go through a VA benefits representative. They should never have to pay for assistance with filing for a service-connected disability. There are a ton of excellent county service officers, the Veterans Benefits Office, all the county service, or excuse me, other veteran service organizations like VFW, the Legion, AMVETS, lots of great organizations out there. I recognize that a lot of you are working with veterans when time is very limited. I still think it's worth helping veterans and families try to apply for service connection. If they come on service with you and you identify that they may have a condition that they might want to apply for service connection, I would encourage anytime you enroll a veteran, you ask them if they're service connected. And then I would encourage every single veteran in your service to meet with a benefits representative to make sure that they have applied for everything they could possibly be entitled to. We have a handout that I put a picture on here of that lists all the different places they could get assistance. There are more, but we will make sure to send this out to folks. It's also on our website. This is a handout that you can give to every veteran and their family and say, please find someone on this list you're comfortable with, reach out, get an appointment, and ask what you or your loved ones might be entitled to, and get that application started. Anytime you apply, if a veteran has a terminal diagnosis, if they're on service for hospice, make sure that you write all over that application on the fax cover sheet that it needs to be expedited due to veteran having a terminal illness. That does make a difference. Any questions on that one? Okay. Okay, so what are some additional benefits besides the financial ones I talked about? What are some other benefits to veterans and their families for recognizing their service connection and getting it on the death certificate when appropriate? It guarantees that veterans and their families will have access to all the benefits they're entitled to receive. Um, It also prevents the need to amend death certificates, which, from my understanding, is possible, but is a pain and causes great delays. I have seen many times where a veteran service connected condition should have been on the death certificate, and then the family ends up it should have been on the death certificate but wasn't because something else was able to be listed and was, and it can take months or even years for families to get the death certificate amended, get their service, and get their applications in for their benefits. So keep that in mind. And of course, it prevents delays for the veterans and their families. Like I said, there are other ways to be eligible for VA benefits, but if it is appropriate and it is related to their service-connected condition, it will make it much, much easier for them to access benefits. What questions do folks have? Just as a quick summary, and I will be sure that this is emailed out on our handout, just to recap this presentation. What is a VA service-connected condition? It is a medical condition that started or was worsened by a veteran's military service, and it has been verified by the VA, and they are receiving a monthly compensation for it. What do you do if you're not sure of their service-connected conditions? Please just call the VA, any social worker, or I specifically recommend you call the VA palliative care teams. We will make sure to confirm for you what their service-connected condition is. Again, it is on the face sheet. If we send you like a demographics sheet of a veteran, it is at the very, very, very bottom, and it lists their conditions and what percentage they're connected for. And the benefits to families are that they might be eligible for survivor and burial benefits. And so our recommendation to all of you is to come up with some internal process for identifying their service connection, making sure it is flagged in their chart, and then making sure that whoever signs their death certificate is aware of those service connections so that they can take into consideration if it's appropriate to include it on the death certificate. Melissa, would you be willing to share how you guys do that at Heart to Heart?
Yeah, so I'm one of the We Honor Veterans coordinators and the bereavement coordinator. So part of my job with doing the bereavement is ensuring that the doctor has chart access and has the diagnosis. And so when I know one of our patients is a veteran, like Liz said, we have the service connected, and we'll make sure that the doctor understands which diagnoses are kind of more of a priority. Obviously, they're choosing, but they're usually very understanding and at least are putting them as secondary. So, and we've had families reach out and years later have death certificates amended, which is actually a pretty easy process. And VSOs will kind of reach out with the family to help us kind of know. I know when the diagnosis kind of changed, I don't know, was that a year or two ago, when they kind of added more presumptive disabilities? Then we had some phone calls from VSOs kind of saying, hey, it's really important that now blood pressure or different things like that might not have been on the death certificate was added. So I don't know, does that make sense, or you have questions about that?
Makes sense to me. Would anybody else be willing to share, what you do, like how you screen for veterans, if you have any processes in place related to encouraging them to apply for service connection or listing their service connections on their chart? Is this on anybody's radar, or is this kind of a new thought? Don't be shy. We're always trying to make this more of a conversation than a lecture.
Hi, my name
No,
is Alexis. I'm with the Care Team Hospice. When we admit a patient, we have a form that the family fills out during consents that talks about if the patient is a veteran, if their spouse is a veteran, what benefits they already have, and then we work to add them to our list of we have veteran volunteers who send out weekly cards for our veteran patients. So we add them to that program, and then our social workers sit down and help them figure out what benefits they're eligible for.
Oh, that's very impressive. I love that.
And I also think it's important when they are veterans to make sure that all parties, not just the hospice company, is involved in being aware that they are a veteran, so that the funeral home is aware that they are a veteran. And, oftentimes we're trying to ensure that there is a final solution, that we're playing taps, and to make sure that the family has a flag that we can present them with. So just anything that we can to, when we do pinning ceremonies, to make sure that we're acknowledging the branch of the military that they were in, because that is very important to the families, not just for the veteran, but for the families when a veteran does pass. I think anything that you can do and go a little bit of the extra mile to show that we're recognizing and thanking them for their service, and personalizing it to the branch of the military that they were in, and if they served in war, a prisoner of war, etc. Just to personalize each and every veteran.
That's great. Are there any other agencies or organizations out there that would be willing to share either what you do related to this topic of service connection and benefits, or anything else special that you do for veterans on service with you? This is one of the beauties of HVPI, is the sharing of ideas, and we all can learn from each other on new ways to honor and take care of veterans at end of life. Is there anything anybody else would be willing to share?
Liz, can you hear me?
My name is, oh, go ahead.
Oh, multiple volunteers.
Liz,
I-
it's more of a question, I think.
Okay.
A hospice organization contacts you and inquires regarding a veteran has a disability rating, and you find that there is no disability rating for that particular veteran. What should the hospice social worker do from that point forward?
Great question. So again, I would say I would recommend to every single veteran and veterans family that they meet with a veterans benefits representative to share their story, their service background, and ask what they may or may not be entitled to. That service officer would be able to help identify if it would be in their if they might be eligible for service connection, and then they could help them with that application. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah. Gotcha.
And this
Okay.
is a little bit topic, but if we're going to talk about it, I thought maybe it would be an okay time to mention, just on a personal note, as my dad passed away at the Indianapolis VA, and he had a life insurance policy that helped pay for his funeral. So maybe when we're out working with these veterans, if they mention something about having a piece of paper that has a life insurance policy, that is super beneficial for hospice companies to know. Not every veteran has that. But if they do, that is something that we would need to help coordinate. And so I just thought maybe we could bring it to the attention of the hospice companies if they say something, that we can help coordinate that with.
Yeah, that's great information as well. There was someone else who spoke up. Can you come back on and share what you were going to?
Yeah, my name is Megan Templin, and I am the director of sales for the whole state of Indiana for the Waters Nursing Home Group. And so I have really became the point person. So upon admission, in our consents and forms, also we have a veterans form that if they're a veteran, they fill out. And then if there's any questions, while they come on hospice or whatever, that is directed to me. So I cover all 36 facilities. And then we have 3 contracted facilities in the state. So that's been very helpful. And then I reach out to you guys.
Perfect. That's excellent. And Megan is a great example of a non-hospice agency, a nursing home network that can, collaborate with us to come up with good ideas. And Megan, you said something that made me think. I just want to be clear that if you all call us and a veteran is enrolled in the VA and you ask us what their service-connected conditions are, we are allowed to share that with you. We do not have to go through all the rigmarole of the release of information office. For coordination of care and for the best interest of the veteran, we are allowed to collaborate with community organizations like you all and provide that information. I have seen other presentations like this where they instructed agencies to go through release of information to get those service connected conditions. Please do not do that. Please call me or Champagne here at the Indianapolis office or Marty at the Northern Indiana Palliative Care office. We will not require a release of information unless there's some like extenuating circumstance that I can't even think of right now. We want to make this as easy for you all as possible. We also recognize no one's going to remember all this information we talked about today, so we're going to send out a handout on this information, but also just, if nothing else, please remember that service-connected conditions are important for the veteran and their family and their benefits. And if you want more information about that, or you're like, I know Liz said something, but I can't remember, just call us. We are very approachable. I would say Marty and I are some of the best people at the VA about getting back to folks. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we will make sure that you know how to help your veterans and their families as best as possible. Anybody else willing to share anything they do related to benefits or honoring veterans? I love hearing
Yeah.
from agencies and knowing what's going on in the field.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lexi. I'm with Cornerstone Caregiving. We are contracted with the VA to do non-medical and home care for veterans and all seniors. But something I just wanted to share from another non-hospice agency. We do a lot of work with helping veterans get connected with their benefits. And a lot of times that's just the beginning steps of filling out the 1010 easy form together and getting them enrolled into the VA healthcare system if they've never seen a VA doctor before. And then beyond that, giving them the right questions to ask to get the evaluation for the HHA service, which is the home health aid. So that's definitely something I ask my veteran or my seniors when I sit down with them. Some of them are willing to start with private pay, and I ask the question of, are you a veteran? And then we can go through that process. So it's been a huge blessing to our veterans.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And I am really excited. We have a lot of our usual HVPI folks on here and a lot of new people. So please, please, please go to our website and join us, become a partner. Being a partner is a small commitment, but gives you access to a lot of good resources. We have these quarterly virtual meetings where we share updates and try to have educational opportunities. And then occasionally we'll send out an email like update from the VA or update something on our website.
Well, thank you to Alicia Hancock from Southern Care Hospice for inviting me. And I'll definitely be sure to enter.
Great.
I have one other thing I was thinking about. Sometimes, when you're doing that enrollment process and the veteran will say, or their family, oh, we went through that whole thing. We tried to see what benefits were out there available for us since he is a veteran, but they turned us down. Well, there's different parts and pieces to that as to why or what happened. And so just highly encourage them to try again, because it could be that maybe they tried for a service connection and that was denied. So if that was the case for that specific circumstance, there are so many things that have changed throughout the years with PACT Act, the Mission Act, there's all kinds of acts that have been approved that where they do presumptive illnesses, and service connection is automatic for certain things. The best, easiest example I think of right away is diabetes, in reference to exposure to Agent Orange. And it isn't about whether they actually were exposed to Agent Orange or not, whether they know that or not, whether they could prove it or not. It's that about the time that they served, when they served, where they were, those kind of things. And it's an automatic, presumptive illness is what they call that. And so then they would be entitled to a service connection at that point. I mean, and there's a multitude of other diagnoses and things that happen like that. So just know, if they tried it in the past, please encourage them to do it again, and or at least attempt again, because they may be able to, and maybe there's more documentation to approve what was going on prior or whatever. So that's one piece of the pie. The other thing is, if they were enrolled at one point or tried to enroll at one point, and let's just say they said, okay, I saw my doctor one time, but I didn't go back because then I went and seen my other private doctor on the private side, and I really like him or her, and I want to stick with that doctor, and that's fine. That doesn't mean that they can't enroll again, and they don't have to change anything that they're doing. So sometimes they get, or they'll get confused about what they mean when we don't have the ability to do that again, and or they already turned us down once. So there's a multitude of reasons why that could happen. Enrollment and eligibility is its own piece of the pie, and service connection is its own piece of the pie. So there's actually three different things. And when you say all that, so just highly encourage them to take a look again. And even if that means just calling and saying, hey, what is this going to look like? Is this even worth my while? I promise you it probably is. Promise. It usually is. The other thing, there was a person who asked a question earlier, and you said, as a social worker, and I find out my person is a veteran, how can I best help them? I think that was how you worded that. If anything, the best, easiest, I mean, is yes, what Liz says is to contact a veteran service officer and or one of the organizations to kind of get them on the right track. Then another thing is, you have us to call, you have us to email. We'd be more than willing to see what there is out there. They may be in the system, they may not be. It just kind of depends. So you can always reach out to us as well for those questions. Liz, you're sharing your screen.
Yes, this is the handout that we'll make sure everyone has, that we give to veterans to get assistance with benefits. This is just something I've put together. It's not all inclusive. But the Veterans Benefits Administration, this block here at the top, this is the actual VBA office. This is where they actually process them and approve the service connection and other benefit applications. This website is really great. You can actually request to schedule an appointment with them. It can be in person or virtual. You go to this website, you put in your name, what site you want to see a benefits person at. You put your location, it tells you what your options are. But I have found that if you go to this website and request a virtual appointment with the VBA, you can get an appointment next day. Within same day or 1 to 2 days max, you can get a benefits appointment with somebody. That would be my recommendation. If folks are overwhelmed and they have trouble getting out of the house, I would encourage hospice social workers to help them get on this website and sign up for an appointment.
There
Liz,
are
can you hear me?
also veterans benefit officers, and to include DAV, sometimes American Legion, whatever their affiliation is, that are right here. Like they come straight here to the Marion VA, and they have different locations that they travel to as well. So highly encourage the online thing, because that's just so helpful. And then the social worker could be maybe online with them at the same time, possibly. Or also, if they felt more comfortable of coming in somewhere, the VSOs in the county courthouses, and then also here at the VAs, they have their own offices as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Marty. Are there any other questions or comments? I see that we've got Dr. Fettig online now, so we told him he'd start at 11, so we have a few more minutes. Dr. Fettig, let me know if you are ready to go. But for the meanwhile, are there any other questions or comments?
Liz, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Al Cosmore again. I'm going to put on my Vietnam Veterans Ball Cap that I've been using for 20 years and offer some guidance that I have learned over the 20 years of dealing with at least Vietnam veterans. Frequently, when you ask them if they're healthy, whether they've ever applied for veterans benefits, their response is either no or I was declined a long time ago after I was released from active duty. I've also learned that, as it's already been pointed out, the benefits have changed over the 50 years since the Vietnam War, specifically regarding Agent Orange diabetes, as far as being presumptive conditions as a result of having serviced in the war. When I talk with Vietnam veterans, and their response is no, I've never applied, or I was declined. My immediate response is there's a form that you can file with the VA that doesn't require intervention by a veteran service officer. It's called an intent to file a claim form. And that form can be completed online, and it can be sent in by the family or family member. And that is submitted to the Veterans Benefits Administration. And that form, then the Benefits Administration will then respond with, we have received your intent to file a claim form. Then the next step that I encourage veterans to do is go see a veteran service officer to help prepare the claim. But the important part is getting the Veterans Benefits Administration to acknowledge that you have filed an intent to file a claim form, because that becomes extremely important if, in fact, you are determined to have a disability percentage, that pension that they're going to pay you is going to go back to the date that you filed the intent to file the claim form, not the date that the claim was actually filed. And there's a big difference in that. So that's my comment here, that if there's any question about the hospice veteran having a disability rating or having ever applied, then the place to start is with an intent to file a claim form. And that's pretty straightforward. I mean, I have the form numbers. I carry the form with me now because I bumped into so many veterans who have not or do not know whether or not they have a disability rating. It's unfortunate. That's the way it is.
Thank you for sharing that, Al. Your experience is invaluable, and those tips are extremely, extremely helpful. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for your service. Al is one of our regular volunteers here at the Indianapolis VA, so he frequently is sharing his words of wisdom with us. Thanks again.